Hey guys, Chris here. I want to do a video today on taking responsibility, taking ownership, having one-to-one conversations with people with problems, resolving conflicts, and what generally happens in enmeshed families, and also how the sort of enmeshment plays into people's life, not taking personal responsibility for themselves, being quite passive, not really stepping into that masculine power. How this happens is what we'll dive into. So basically, I think from enmeshment, you're getting your needs met. You're focusing on just meeting your mother's needs, and then the father perhaps becomes quite passive. You don't really learn to take full responsibility for yourself, so you more fall into that kind of gossiping frame with other people rather than sort of contact the person directly. So how this sort of manifests in sort of the enmeshed sort of families is you might have problems with other family members, and you rarely will go straight to them and tell them about it straight away, between different uncles and aunties or cousins or whatever it is, different families. The gossip is just a lot more appealing, and when you have problems in your life, to really take ownership and to have freedom and to take personal responsibility is if you have a problem with someone, you go to them and you speak about it. The thing is, we're falling into sort of a gossip mentality as you're losing your sense of personal power and taking responsibility, and you sort of are you're staying in that negative energy and things are never resolved, because you should maybe have a problem with someone, it becomes frustrating, you have anger, but then when you don't speak to that person, you remain in that kind of that cycle. And I think with sort of enmeshment, perhaps if a guy, using the example of a guy who's enmeshed with his mum, and I did a talk the other night, and most of the people on the call were actually women, and they all had issues with their mum as well. So I'm pretty sure the enmeshment is common, is just as common with women, if not more so. It's more common. But I know this channel I focus more on guys. But just to let you know, it is a common thing. So you're then really attaching with more the feminine, and let's just say we associate gossip more between women rather than sort of a masculine trait. Because masculine is a bit more like, all right, let's solve the problem. The problem with gossip is it doesn't go anywhere. It's you stay in that energy, and it can feel quite, because you're getting connection, because you could be frustrated with someone at work and then you speak to a co-worker, and they're frustrated as well, so you make that link between the two of you, and the reason I think is so more existent in the enmeshment, people with enmeshment, is because they've not really had that father role model, in particularly more in a healthy way. It's been quite passive. They're probably in that kind of gossip thing as well. Whereas if you associate with someone who's more in that kind of strong masculine, they're very calm and they don't really get involved in gossip. They're like, okay, what's the solution? And the solution is, if you tend to have problems with other people, is you speak to them directly. But it can be addictive to fall into this negative. And like I said, you're getting this sense of connection, and that's generally how it ends up happening. So I really encourage people to if you have a problem with someone, speak to them directly. So whenever anyone speaks to me now and go, oh, I've got a problem with this person and that person, I'm like, if you spoke to them, can you resolve it? And maybe there isn't, and then if you can't resolve it with the person, of course you can just speak to someone else about it and say, like, this happened, but then leave it, and then that relationship has kind of died, because if you can't work things out between you, because again, it's you're falling more into the phase of, I can't get my needs met, and you're in this victim mentality. I mean, that's one of the main things it is about, is it's remaining a victim when you're gossiping, and you never really, so the people who are at the bottom of the company of a job gossiping, they never really break out of that cycle, and it can be quite feel this sense of like feeling trapped. And it can feel addictive and it can feel great, but you're reaffirming that victimization, because then you're speaking to other people who feel like a victim, and you kind of then congregate together. Whereas a more leadership point of view, taking responsibility, is like, okay, what are we gonna do about it? And those people appeal more to more attractive, and you may have not had a healthy model of that in your life from the sense of feeling enmeshed or whatever. But this is how you grow, and then you have problems and you speak to people directly. That is part of being an adult. I think because there's been examples in my life over the last year or so of people who maybe were a friend of mine, or they left a job and then they had some beef with me, and then they didn't actually speak to me in person, which is which can be difficult to digest, and also knowing that there was actually a problem. But when you speak to people and they say everything's fine, they're lying. So this is kind of how a nice guy, let's say an enmeshed guy as a nice guy, not really nice because they're not being authentic to who they are. They're not being honest. They're not being true to themselves. So, this is why it's a common trait of enmeshment, because deep down, you're not getting your needs met, and if you say something, you're not going to be heard. But why not just say something? Maybe you don't get heard, and maybe you don't get your needs met. But at least you try, and then you get to go in the right direction. You get to see how people really are. But that's a relationship. That's how relationships work. And then this is, I think, as a male role model or father, or who was maybe quite passive, is kind of just staying out of the whole picture. Just there, just don't do anything. But then gossip is really appealing. If you're not taking action and doing anything about it, gossip is the thing you just latch onto, because you have to do something. You have to connect in some way. You have to connect to your feelings, and unfortunately, I think gossip is mainly for people stuck in that victim. I think gossip maybe has a sense, sometimes just to connect with people about frustration, but at the end of the day, if there's no action taking, proactivity about it, it remains gossip, and it kind of is just negative and toxic. And the goal, I think, is to break out of that and establish your identity. So yeah, that's what I want to share on that. So the next time issues, do look to always think, okay, how can I resolve this? Is talking about this negatively, does it feel addictive? And is it really getting me anywhere? Sort of ask those questions. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.